making whoopee. Another bright, another June, another sunny honeymoon, another season, a real good reason for making whoopee. Another June, a lot of rice. The groom is nervous, he answers twice. It's really killing that he's so willing for making whoopee. Picture a little love nest down where the roses clean. Picture same sweet love nest. Look what a year can bring. He's washing dishes and baby clothes. He's so ambitious. He cooks and sews. Now don't forget, folks, that's what you get, folks, for making whoopee. Another year, or maybe less. What's this I hear? Why can't you guess? She feels neglected, and he's suspected of making whoopee. She sits alone most every night. She doesn't phone, won't even write. She says he's busy, but she says Izzy is making whoopee. He doesn't make much money, is funny. Says he'll pay more to her. But he says, Judge, what if I fail? The judge says, barge right into jail. You better keep her. I think it's cheaper than waking Whoopi. You better keep her. I know it's cheaper than making Whoopi. You better keep her. I know it's cheaper than making Whoopi. Making Whoopi. Oh, I have a nice group. I have Herbie Williams and Lou Barnett and Drew Evans and Leonard White and sometimes Will Austin. And we're doing a lot of things. We have done the auto show. We were up in Ipsy last week. We're going overseas for 6 weeks, hopefully. I mean, I know that we're going. And we've been planning some jazz festivals. And last week I was so happy because I had a chance to play with 8 pieces. And I had a chance to play my vibraharps, and we had a ball. Matter of fact, it was a shame to take the money. But we needed it. But we're doing a lot of things, and things look good. When I come back from overseas, I hope to make an album with the group. I've never had an album with the group. This is what I want to do.
What kind of material are you covering with this group?
Well, now, let's be honest. If we're doing a jazz concert, then we do the jazz things like Night in Tunisia, Round About Midnight, I Remember, Clifford, and Lover Man, and that kind of thing. But if we go into a hotel, we do what the traffic calls for. That might be a businessman's bounce. And that's things like New York, New York, Sending the Clowns, Memories from Cats. You know, you have to do it all to survive. You just can't, you know, do what you want to do. The first group we had, and if you would, that group is unbelievable. We had a fellow named George Washington on bass. I played piano. Al Harper played drums. But we had Willie Wells on trumpet, who became a giant. We had Lucky Thompson on tenor, who became a giant, and Julius Watkins. And I didn't realize at that point that I was in the company of such people. And then the first time I worked at the Jade Room in California, they had a band on there called Kid Ory, and I had no idea who he was. But I found out later that he was one of the forerunners of, you know, when you're young, you don't realize how great some people are. You don't have, at least I didn't. But the older I get, I realize that there are a lot of giants walking around, and it humbles me. When I started out with a trio. Well, I first started out with this band when I was a young girl. I worked for a band a short while. And we just played for shows and that kind of thing. And then within a year, I joined the trio that was already organized, and they renamed it the Two Counts and the Countess. Then we went all over. And by the time I was 21, we had worked from New York to San Francisco. And we worked the supper clubs and hotels, that kind of thing. You know, the kind of jazzy supper clubs. And that's the kind of thing we did. We did the standards, but we did some jazz. Because the guitar player, Johnny Fair, he was phenomenal. I remember when we went to New York, to Menton's. There's a little jazz club up in New York. And when we first went in, the guitar player just took Johnny's guitar. And finally, when he let Johnny play, he wouldn't let Johnny quit. That's how good he was. And Kurt Wilder was an excellent bass player, so we did a lot of nice things.
So you said you traveled to New York and did Mittens. What other clubs or places?
We worked in Philadelphia. We worked in Chicago. Well, we spent the bulk of our time with the group. We spent in California. We worked there for 3 years, and we worked all over California, from San Francisco down to L.A. to Riverside, San Diego. We didn't miss anything because we did a lot of things there. That's where we made our first album with the trio many years ago. It was the '78.
Mm-hmm. And you did some films out there?
We do what they call, some people, a long time ago, they used to have what they call movie shorts or panoramas, that they would use musical acts to do, a short thing to fill up the show. And then sometimes, it's a forerunner now of your videos, really. Because sometimes they would put them in nightclubs and you would put money in to see them. And we made about 4 of those. Matter of fact, when we recorded them the same day with Mel Torme's group and with Charles Brown. Charlie Moore, is that his name? The Charles Brown, the singer.
Charles Brown, the R&B singer?
Mm-hmm. Because we worked with him at a place called the Swing Club on Hollywood Boulevard in Las Palmas. We used to alternate with him. And that was, those corners there, they had Billy Bergs, they would have all of the jazz groups. And then, matter of fact, that's where I first saw Earl Garner. And meeting him was really a surprise. It was hilarious because he would come in the club every night. Maybe I better shouldn't say this. And he would kid me all of the time. He says, "Come on, little lady, hang with me." I said, "Oh, no." So finally one night I says, "Hey, man, what do you do in Hollywood?" He said, "I work across the street." I said, "Well, what do you do?" He said, "I play the piano." I said, "Oh, my God, you're Earl Garner." And that's how I met him. He took me across the street and played Sweet Lorraine, and I'll never forget that. Because whenever I play Sweet Lorraine, I think about Earl Garner. I'll never forget that. He was a beautiful person. Well, the thing that was good for me, I worked through a big agency. We worked for MCA. And when we went to California, a job was waiting for us. We never did one-nighters. In fact, now, you know, in Detroit, occasionally I do them, but on the road, we always had 2 to 4 to 12 weeks bookings because we worked in clubs like the Trocadero, and we worked the Stardust Room in Hollywood, out the Billy Bergs, we worked the Radio Room. So all up and down Sunset Boulevard, we did a lot of things. And the road was easy for me because the booking agent, whenever we got to town, the room was waiting for us. So it was like the ice cream circuit, you know, easy. I met Scatman in San Francisco many years ago. We worked at a jazz room up in San Francisco on Gary and Powell, and we used to have a ball because we would have jam sessions. It was wonderful. Then again, we opened a room in Lower California called the Stardust, and we had 3 groups there. That's where I met Joyce Bryan and Scatman. We did a lot of things. And the beautiful thing about Scatman, that as he became bigger and more affluent, when he did Chico and the Man, he remained the same, and I corresponded with Scat until he died. He was an inspiration because when he hit the stage, it was nothing but fire. He played banjo. He was something else. He was a wonderful man. So I came home and I joined Rudy Rutherford's band, the clarinet player, and Dagwood was a drummer, and Harry Gray played bass. That's Wardell Gray's brother. And I worked with him for a while. And then I started doing the single. And from then, I worked around Detroit for a while, and then I went back on the road again. I was on the road for about 8 years, and then I came back home in '64. And that's when I switched over to Oregon and had a chance to do a lot of different things. I was not in the jazz scene.
Oh.
I've been scolded for that, but I was a survivor, so I was at the Statler Hilton for 2 years. I worked for all of the Hilton chains, and I worked for a lot of the supper clubs. I was not in the jazz scenes. I worked all over Dearborn. I worked Chamberton's. I worked the Dearborn Inn, but I was not really in the jazz scene. I wanted to be, but finance wouldn't allow me, you know. So it's only recently that I've been able to do the things that I really want to do.
So what was it like working the scene that you did with?
Beautiful. It allowed me to learn a lot of standards, and allowed me to, it wasn't that you couldn't play jazz, but you couldn't feature it all night long. You could do some of it, but you couldn't do all of it, you know. But it was fine. I made a lot of good friends, and I had a chance to do some of the things I wanted to do. I had a chance to do some writing. I had a chance to save money and produce an album. I did a lot of things. Yeah, I have a little record company called Alma Music, and I hope someday to get to the point where I can produce not only me, but other people. That's why I keep my license. I've had my license now since '83. So I have what they call a signature. That's my label, Valma Music. I do have that. Mm-hmm. And I have other things, but I really want to do a lot of jazz concerts. This is reason now that I'm not doing any single engagements, because there are lots of single engagements, especially for a woman that plays piano. But I like playing with groups. And recently I've started, you know, using my vibra harps, and I've gotten good response from that. So this is what I really want to do. But I was told that if I wanted to get my original writings over to put it on an album where perhaps someone else could hear it. And this is the reason for that album. But there are a couple blues on there, and the love songs, and there are things that swing, but they're played like in the middle of the road thing. You couldn't call them jazz, but then you couldn't say they were not jazz. You know, it's just happy music, that's all. Well, the title song from this album is called Dreamin'. In essence, it says, you can have anything you want, do anything you want, if you just keep on dreaming. 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 A lot can be said for just dreaming. A world without dreams is a sky without a rainbow. Concerts with no show. So try dreaming. Everything's better just dreaming. You can go to heaven without leaving home. See Paris, even Rome. Sometimes we want for things that seem impossible, but dreams can make them happen in your heart. So start dreaming. Save a little time for dreaming. There may be clouds, but inside the feeling sunny. Rich and not have money. Dreams can make them happen in your heart. So start dreaming. Save a little time for dreaming. There may be clouds, but inside the feeling sunny. Rich and not have money. Whatever you long for and all that you hope for can be yours. Try dreaming. A long time ago, I was told that my hands were too small. But I can stretch. Like boogie woogies. Little heads. little hands. The hands are the size of it, had nothing to do with it. I just like to play. Art Tatum, I've always felt was the greatest pianist that ever lived. Because I saw him play one time and I started to quit playing. The man is, you wouldn't believe a man could play so many keys. But I have found that great people are always nice people, because the first job on the road, I followed Art Tatum. And I followed a lot of giants that I didn't know they were giants. I followed Ammons and Johnson. Did you ever hear of him?
Gene Ammons?
No, Gene Ammons' father. I worked with Gene Ammons a long time ago. But they were, Pete Johnson is the one that wrote the jazz tune called Carolina Shout. And I followed him. I followed Meet Lux Lewis. We followed a lot of good musicians on the road. And Art Tatum, love Nat King Cole. I like Earl Garner. There's so many good pianists. You know, you could never stop. There's so many of them. But Art Tatum, as far as I'm concerned, was the master. He had a way of doing things. He was real fast. He could do a lot of things, you know, where people, he would do with one hand what other people couldn't do with two. The man was phenomenal. And I'm happy to have seen him in person. I like working with a group because it requires discipline. And one thing I like and I appreciate my musician brothers for, if they see me going in the wrong direction, they will pull my coat. And I appreciate that, because the only way you can grow is to learn. And as long as I can keep learning, I'm happy. You know, because let me tell you something, doing a single, you can start a song and switch the tempo, play the wrong changes, but it requires discipline to play with the group. And that's what I really like, playing with the group. We can do different things. We do things that I never dreamed of doing when I was a single, you know, because a single, basically when you're single, I get a chance to entertain, and I would just rather play, you know. I've had about 8 tunes recorded. Kim Weston did one of my songs on that Hastings Streets album. Nobody Had to Tell Me We Were Through. And Naima, she sings about 3 of my songs. I have a number of artists that think that my songs are quality songs, and they do them. In fact, when Naima opens, she opens with a song about Detroit called Moving Along. And in fact, I played it at a retirement party, and Mel Roberts asked me, he said, "Lady, whose song is that?" I told him mine, and he said, "This is the best song I've heard about Detroit." And also in one of Jim Dulso's columns, he said that if the Chamber of Commerce was smart, they would use that for a song. It's a nice little song. Detroit is my town, and I love it. In so many ways, I'm so proud of it. Detroit's gonna make it, take it from me. 'Cause the best is yet to come. I'll wait and see. We're moving along, doing great, looking fine. I'm moving along, I'm making it on down the line, reaching so high, I'm plucking stars from out the sky, reaching so high, touch the moon as it floats by. Detroit's a wonderful city, we really have class, but so many beautiful people. Detroit is bound to last. Look at the scene, everything is going swell. You know what I mean? Detroit's alive and doing well. Shooby-dooby-dooby-doo now. I'm talking about the big D. Shooby-dooby-doo-doo ow. Way ahead, notice. Detroit beautiful city. We really have class. But so many beautiful people. Detroit is bound to last. Look at the scene. Everything is going swell. You know what I mean? Detroit's alive and doing well. Talking about Big D, the great motor city. Hey, this is my town. Love it. The first song I ever wrote, oh God. Oh, the first song I really wrote, this is a true song. I wrote, Benny Carter had a song called Malibu. And I heard it in California. I was a young girl and I wrote the lyrics. Al Hibbler, that used to sing with Duke, heard it. He says, hey girl, whose song is that? I said, I wrote it. And he said, I'll give you $50 for it. I just put the lyrics to it. I said, no, if you record it and give me credits, you can have it. But he said, no, so I wouldn't give it to him. So every time he sees me, he kids me about it. When he was here 2 years ago, he kidded me about the song. It was written to, that was the first one that I remember. And then I wrote a little blues that we recorded. The Council and the Countess called I've Got a Man. I can't even remember that. Mm-hmm. So I just like to write. Oh, well, I went to music. I went to Cass Tech, you know. And we had orchestration and harmony. We had a lot of music. I had 2 years. The first instrument I played in the girls' band was bass. We had an all-girls band, and I played bass. I had 2 years of clarinet. And then I worked with organ for 2 years, because right now, when I played behind Lou Rawls in '64, I used organ. I don't think he even knows that I played the piano, you know. And then you played the vibes for a long time. I just like to play. But when Dakota was in Detroit, I played behind Dakota Staten. That was for about, not that long. But she was here in Detroit before she had her big hit. And I used to work at a place called the Hilltop House up in Pontiac, Telegraph and Dixie, and I worked 6 nights and she worked the 3 nights. Jean Duchamp also worked with us there too, you know. But I've had a chance to do a lot of things. I was on a show once with Jimmy Dorsey playing vibra-harps, and I find that the better a musician a person is musically, the easier they are to work with. Because I had to play on the show with Jimmy Dorsey and I was shaking all over. And he made me so comfortable that I felt kind of proud. It's not often that I feel good about what I play, because I have a tendency to try too hard, and I get hyper and I get all nervous. That's just my nature, you know. But music has been good to me. I've had a chance to do a lot of things and play with a lot of people. And when I go on the ship, I play with a lot of different music. I just have a good time playing my music, you know. I have seen Lionel Hampton many, many times because he had a pianist called Milton Buckner. And I used to take piano lessons from Milton Buckner. He was one of the people that said my hands were small, but he was an excellent teacher. Last year, they had a tribute to Lionel Hampton downtown. And as always, whenever I see somebody playing the vibes, I get all excited. So I was standing next to Lionel Hampton with my mouth wide open. The man is wonderful. So somebody told him, hey, Ham, that lady plays vibes. You know what he did? He turned around and handed me the sticks. So he played a lick, and I played a lick, and he was surprised. So we did this 4 or 5 licks. And then I said, let me play something I can play. We got to the piano, and he played the vibes. We had a wonderful session. But here's the funny thing. They made him an honorary judge. And you know what he said? The first thing I'm going to do is sentence this Alma Smith woman to 90 days for coming in and stealing my show. The first set of vibes I bought, I took them to work in California, and they were so raggedy until the boss made me take them back. He said, they're too raggedy to be in a nice club. So when I went to take them back, the person at the store wouldn't take them because I was a young kid. And this is when I found out what power could do. My boss went over and he says, you give this girl a set of new vibes and take the money back. And so that's how I started vibes. Vibes are like a keyboard, but it has chimes and it gives a percussive sound different from the piano. especially in front of a band, you know, you can do things. It's just like playing a horn or something. There are a lot of things you can do, a lot of effects. I just like. And when you play vibes, you really, if you know the keyboard, then you learn how to work on a drum pad and get your wrist flexible so your hands can do like that. You can play. It's percussive. I just like it. That's all. My first job on the road was in a place called Chin's Golden Dragon. And you wouldn't believe, but I followed the greatest pianist in the world, Art Tatum. He had Slam Stewart with him and Tiny Grimes. And I told him, I said, Mr. Tatum, I don't see how I can ever sit at the same piano you played. And I will never forget, he says, little girl, do what you do and somebody's going to like you. Since then, years later, I had a chance to work with Slam Stewart in Cleveland. I did several gigs with him. And a nice fringe benefit from having met these people was that Tiny Grimes, a long time ago before he died, tried to get me to come to New York. But the reason I wouldn't go, he wanted me to give up the piano and play vibes exclusively. I would never do that, because the piano is my first love. Another bride, another June, another sunny honeymoon, another season, a real good reason for making whoopee. Another June, a lot of rocks. The groom is nervous, he answers twice. It's really killing that he's so willing